the night I pretended not to know. I used to believe secrets behaved like coins. They clinked softly at the bottom of your pocket, minor weight, forgotten until you reached in at the wrong time. Then I met Lena, and I learned that secrets heat up in the dark. They press against your thigh. They brand you. The first time I saw her, she was leaning on the bar at Myra's, the kind of neighborhood place that pretends it never learned the meaning of influencer. Low light, indifferent music, the promise of anonymity. My best friend Tom had dragged me out to celebrate his real estate win. An apartment he'd flipped to a buyer who thought a balcony with a view of dumpsters was the same as a view of the city. Tom was always selling angles. He was also engaged to my sister Maya, which is why I had agreed to toast him in public instead of telling him to grow a conscience at home. Lena wasn't with him. She wasn't with me. She was with no one, and in that emptiness I made the mistake of stepping in. "You look like you're listening to a song everyone else can't hear," I said. I thought I sounded charming. She looked at me, stared past me, then back with the smallest smile that felt like a dare. "I hate when songs get stuck in my head," she said. I was trying to change the station. 2 hours later we had our own station. Her laugh cliché and brand new, my palms suddenly warm, the kind of intoxication that makes you forget your name and recite hers. Lena. She had a way of holding eye contact that made the bar fade until it was just us on an invisible stage. She told me she wrote ad copy for a jewelry brand. I told her I audited companies that told themselves stories in columns and rows. She told me she liked blunt honesty. I told her my mouth was often sharper than my judgment. She asked my name again as if testing for consistency. I told the truth. We didn't kiss. We also didn't do the moral thing, which would have been to exchange nothing but the bar tab. We exchanged numbers. A week later we exchanged the pretense that we were casual. There should be a rule about timing, a legal article that says, if your sister is choosing linens and your best friend is Googling non-cringe wedding vows, you must not fall into something that burns. But if there is a rule, desire keeps forgetting to read it. I told myself it was simple. She told me she was single. We orbited secrecy because secrecy made the air between us electric. It was only later I learned that orbits eventually decay. The decay began on a Wednesday. The office day had soured and the city rain had turned car hoods into black mirrors. I went to Lena's apartment because she had texted, "I made you pasta, it's dangerous." I brought a bottle of bad wine, and she opened the door in a sweater that did not belong to the weather. Everything about her was deliberate. The hair, the scent, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, as if giving her throat to the room. She kissed me like a threat and a thank you. We ate on the floor because the table was covered in proofs for a campaign, where a woman's hand hovered over a necklace like a warning. "You're quiet," she said after, "accounting brain or conscience." "Both hate pasta," I said, which wasn't true. I didn't want to talk about Tom or Maya or the ceremony creeping toward us like a tide. I wanted to stay hidden inside the briefness of afterglow, and pretend consequences were as fictional as the wine's flavor notes. She put her feet on my thighs. Ever notice how people think good relationships are about telling the truth and bad ones are about lies? But the very best kind, the dangerous kind, run on both. "I'd settle for uncomplicated," I said. "You'd be bored," she said, and when I didn't answer, she added, "You always look like you're ready to run, like the door is a secret you keep from yourself." I didn't run, not until the next day when my phone vibrated in a meeting. A text from Tom, "Can you come by the condo tonight? Found something weird. Need your eye." It was accompanied by the kind of emoji men use when they want to look casual while handing you a grenade. I went. The condo was a half-furnished showroom on the 10th floor, the one he'd bragged about. Tom was packing. He greeted me with a bro handshake that meant trouble. "What's the weird?" I said. He pointed at the kitchen counter. There was a small object on it, a silver charm shaped like a tiny padlock, the kind you buy with a matching key to suggest romance or irony. I recognized it instantly because I had seen it between Lena's fingers as she talked about metaphors. The jewelry brand she wrote for sold a whole line of them. I had hooked my finger through its loop while she laughed into my collar. Recognition hit like a trapdoor opening. "Found it under the couch," Tom said. "Yesterday I showed the place to a buyer. After they left, boom, this." He squinted at me. "You ever see something like this on Maya?" Maya wore practical bracelets that wouldn't snag on hospital curtains. She is a nurse, a person who can hold the ugliest parts of the world with steady hands. She would not wear a padlock shaped like an Instagram caption. My face must have done something because Tom's grin slipped. "Relax," he said, misreading me. "I'm not in panic mode, but the buyer yesterday, she was pretty. Black dress, red lipstick, scarf. You know the type." I knew the type so well it made my stomach hollow. I kept my voice bored. Everyone wears black and red when they want to be remembered. Tom flipped the charm in his palm. Maybe she dropped it. Maybe I'm inventing drama. But now I'm thinking, did she come alone? He looked at me like a border guard deciding whether my passport was real. "You saw anyone in the lobby when you came?" "No," I said, and I decided something without bothering to tell myself. I would pretend not to know. I would become the blank space in everyone else's storyline. I had already been practicing. I don't know what I would have done next if the city hadn't done it for me. The storm that had been flirting with the skyline decided to come inside. Lights flickered. The hallway outside succumbed to that emergency quiet where you can hear your own blood. Tom swore and said he'd go check the breaker down the hall. He left the padlock on the counter. I stared at it like a witness who'd been sworn in. It was ridiculous how heavy something so small could feel. In the dark, my phone lit up. A text from Lena, "Miss me." Then another, an address. It was the same building, a floor above. I felt the trapdoor open under me again, and I let it because falling is easier than climbing. I went upstairs. The hallway smelled faintly of lemon and old carpets. The door at the end was cracked open the way guilty things often are, just enough to claim accident. I knocked like a question mark. Inside, her silhouette moved against candlelight. She opened the door barefoot, hair undone, the sweater from last night repurposed into suggestion. "So you do miss me," she said, soft and sharp. I wondered. My brain wanted to line up questions. Why here? Why him? Why us? But my body did what it always did around her, forgot grammar. She kissed me as if the power outage were a god we'd both prayed to. I followed her in because I had already decided not to know. Somewhere below, my sister's fiancé might have been cursing at a breaker box. Somewhere between my ribs, a voice cleared its throat and asked if I enjoyed Russian roulette. We didn't make it to the couch. The rain normalized into background sound. When we finally pulled apart enough to look like people again, and not just decisions, I found words. They were late and terrible. "The charm," I said. "Found," she said, too quickly, and it was enough to make the room feel colder. "At the condo," I said. "Tom's condo." She rested her head against the door. For a second she looked tired, and I saw the woman beneath the dare. "I had a showing," she said. "Not as a buyer, as an errand. The brand has a deal with a magazine. They stage jewels in photogenic places. My boss asked me to bring pieces to a space that screams aspirational. Your friend's listing appeared. It screamed." She poured a drink and didn't hand it to me. "I was going to tell you, but maybe I liked the risk." The way it made everything feel more present. "I was there 10 minutes ago," I said. She almost smiled. "Synchronized lives are very modern." "And Tom," I said, "he noticed you." "I noticed him first," she said. "Relax, he's not my type." "What is your type?" I said. "You, apparently," she said, and in her voice was something like an apology or a prediction. The door clicked, not the front door, the bedroom. I heard the sound the way you hear your name at a crowded party. A man stepped out, buttoning his shirt, closing a distance between us that his eyes had already crossed. He was composed the way expensive watches are composed. I recognized him too, but only from seeing him on screens. Ezra Vale, the owner of the jewelry company. Lena's boss. "This is awkward," he said mildly, which meant he had practice. "Ezra," Lena said, a warning and a plea. He looked at me with curiosity instead of jealousy. "So this is the auditor," he said, "the one you described as conscience-shaped. Funny." I didn't ask what she had told him because the part of me that wanted to know was the same part that wanted to punch him. I have never been good at both martial and emotional arts. Instead, I focused on the single fact that mattered. She hadn't been alone. She had never really been alone, not at the bar, not on the floor with pasta, not under that sweater. I wasn't naive. I had always understood attraction doesn't arrive with a police escort. But understanding isn't the same as enduring. "You can leave," Ezra said, in a tone that made leaving sound like a promotion. We were done anyway. I didn't move. Lena stepped between us, a line drawn by a trembling hand. "Stop," she said to him, then to me, "Don't. It isn't what it looks like." "It's never what it looks like," I said, because clichés exist for a reason. I told myself to walk away. I told myself to run. But I thought of Maya, my sister, who kept long shifts and longer silences, and of Tom, who sold angles because he didn't trust straight lines. I thought of the padlock. I thought of the orbit decaying. If I left now, I would never stop falling. "Tom thinks he saw you yesterday," I said. "He found your charm. If he asks questions, I'm not lying for you." "I never asked you to," she said. But there was a flicker of disappointment that I would later take to bed like a stray. Ezra's phone lit up on the table, painting his knuckles with news. He glanced at it, then at me. "This is messy," he said. "Which is why you're useful, Mr. Conscience. You look like a man who cleans messes no one else can acknowledge." "Hire a janitor," I said. He smirked. "We're launching a campaign next month. We need someone who can review numbers and keep a straight face when the story doesn't match the math. Discreetly. You seem capable." Lena closed her eyes as if the room had tilted. "Stop it." "Think of it as an alibi we can all believe in," Ezra said to me. "Everyone wins." "Except the person who believes any of us," I said, and I finally left, because the oxygen in that room had been replaced by negotiation. In the hall, I could still smell her perfume, that citrus warmth that used to mean discovery and now meant proof. Downstairs, the lobby lights flickered back on. Tom was at the desk talking to a security guard who looked like he'd seen it all twice. Tom's face eased when he spotted me. "Breaker's good," he said. "You vanish." "Stairs," I lied. "No signal." He held up the padlock charm between thumb and forefinger. "Weird little thing, huh?" I looked at it, and for once the decision came easy. "It's from a collection called Keep Me," I said. "The point is that the lock and key never meet." He laughed. "See, I knew you'd make it poetic." He pocketed it like a souvenir he didn't understand. We left the building together, rain slackening into the kind of mist that makes streetlights halos. That night in my apartment, I waited for Lena to text. She didn't. I waited for my conscience to clap me on the shoulder. It didn't either. The only thing that arrived was an email from Ezra, subject line, proposal. It was not about romance. It was a job offer disguised as absolution, a retainer for silence in a world that worshipped noise. I wrote back nothing. For 2 days I did nothing except imagine futures like spreadsheets. In one column I took the money, performed arithmetic without blinking, learned to breathe underwater. In another I confessed to Maya, broke her heart, broke Tom's jaw, moved to a smaller city and learned to bake bread. In a third I called Lena and asked for a version where we both chose honesty over adrenaline. That column kept deleting itself before I could finish it. On the third day, my sister came to my apartment carrying a bouquet nobody had asked for. She watered it like a ritual and said, "Do you ever get the feeling the story got ahead of you?" I prepared to be brave or cowardly, whichever felt more survivable. But she wasn't there to ask questions. She was there to invite me to a cake tasting. The universe has terrible comedic timing. We went. Tom met us there, radiating charm, ignorant or pretending. In the corner of the bakery, a magazine with Ezra's smile stared up from the table, The Man Who Unlocked Desire. On the cover, a model's finger hooked a padlock necklace. My chest went cold. "Hey," Maya said, following my gaze. "I like that necklace. A patient had one the other day. She said it makes her feel kept." She wrinkled her nose. "Not my word." Tom grinned. "We could get you one as a wedding present. We're into irony." "Please get me something else," she said, and smiled at me with the kind of trust you don't realize is precious until you hear it crack in your head like glass. That night I went home and wrote to Ezra. "No," I wrote to Lena, "I can pretend not to know. I can't pretend not to feel." Then I stared at my phone long enough to learn that silence has a color. She called. Her voice was small and fierce. "He doesn't own me," she said. "I thought I was using him. I think he was using the part of me that loves performance." "We all love performance," I said. "That's the problem." "I didn't choose him," she said. "Not really." "Then choose," I said, and felt cruel and honest and impossibly tired. "I'll come over," she said, and I said, "No, not tonight. If you come, it has to be because a door closed, not because the lights went out." We both breathed. The pause felt like a jury deliberating. "I hate you a little for making me feel clean," she said. "I hate me a lot for liking the dirt," I said. The next morning, I found the padlock charm in my mailbox. No note, just the little silver weight in a plain envelope, as anonymous as a sin. I knew it was from her because the envelope smelled like lemons and apologies. I took it to the river because I needed somewhere that knew what to do with heavy, shiny things. I held it in my palm and remembered the rooms and the offers and the way her name caught in my teeth. I could throw it. I could keep it. Either way, it would continue to be a choice I had to make again and again. Behind me, footsteps, Tom, breathless. He looked at the charm, at me, at the water. "I've been calling," he said. "We need to talk. Maya, she found messages on my laptop, not mine." His voice broke. "I swear I didn't. She says you know something." I closed my fist around the charm until the edges bit skin. Secrets don't want to be coins. They want to be handcuffs. I thought about what kind of brother I wanted to be. What kind of friend? What kind of man with a door he didn't run through? "She's right," I said. "I do know something." He waited, his face a ledger begging for a favorable audit. "I know you're about to marry the best person we both know," I said. "And I know you believe you're a man who can be better tomorrow. Be that man today." "That's not an answer," he said. "It's the only one I have that doesn't break everything," I said, and I hated the way it sounded like compromise dressed as wisdom. He stared at the padlock. "What is that?" "A reminder," I said. He nodded as if reminders were a currency he understood. We stood by the river like two men auditioning for mercy. He didn't ask again. He left to call Maya. I stayed. When I finally threw the charm, it arced in a clean, silver curve and vanished without splash. I wanted a sound, something decisive. Instead, I got quiet and the current doing what currents do. I walked home slowly so my choices could catch up. That night, Lena texted. I told him I quit. The words were plain and shaking. I don't know what happens now. Now, I wrote, we stop pretending not to know. She sent a single reply, a key emoji, then nothing else, like someone tapping a mic before the speech that might save her life. I stared, and for once I didn't hear a coin clink in my pocket. I heard my own voice, telling me the only story that mattered, that a door is not a secret when you decide which side to stand on.